Welcome to today's video. Today, finally, I bring to you the video that I have been teasing and talking about for I feel like ever. I'm finally sitting down to share with you my takeaways and kind of a recap from what I learned from the Bobbi Brown Masterclass. I have been talking about this on Instagram. I've been talking about it in our Facebook group page that I was going to film this video for you guys, and I'm sorry it took me so long, but here we are. So I'm going to actually break this up into at least 2 videos, maybe more depending on when I start doing the next video, how long and what I find. But today we're going to be talking about my takeaways from her lessons on complexion applications. So that means concealer, foundation, blush, bronzer, and highlight. Now, a real quick kind of catch you up to speed if you aren't familiar with what the heck I'm talking about. Masterclass is a paid for app. My husband purchased it for his father for Christmas, and with that you got a free subscription. So we actually got it as that free subscription. It was $180, so it's kind of pricey. I think it was $180, don't quote me, but it's a pricey app. It's not like $5, you know? And within the app, you get access to all of these lessons from masters in their field. And I mean, every type of field: acting, cooking, architecture, home design, home interior design, makeup application. Sarah Blakely, the founder of Spanx, is in there. RuPaul has a masterclass that I love, brought me to tears. I watched it 3 times. I love him. But it's basically learning from people that are masters at something. And so Bobbi Brown has a masterclass where she talks about makeup application, makeup theory, and she basically teaches you her approach to makeup. Now, Bobbi Brown, I feel like, is one of the OG makeup artists, right? She's been around for decades. She's been around way before YouTube and Instagram makeup YouTubers evolved, right? And so I found her approach to makeup very interesting because, to be honest, it's very simple. It is very simple. It's kind of the foundation, the basics of makeup. To be quite honest, I watched the entire lesson, and I forget how many videos, but I would say, I mean, it was a couple hours, okay? Because each video is 15 to 30 minutes, and I would say there was at least 7 or 8 in there. I would say that I found the information I learned in that to be really great for someone that is just getting started in makeup, or that is you know, maybe doesn't wear a lot of makeup and is starting to incorporate makeup. But it's kind of like the basics of makeup. And I found it very interesting because a lot of it kind of contradicts with what you see here on YouTube, what you see on Instagram. I want to say this because I say this in anytime I do a makeup educational video, I always say this, and I don't say it to try and be politically correct or to not offend anyone. I say this because this is truly how I feel. I feel like there are no rules in makeup. I truly do. Makeup is a personal thing. If you do something that makes you feel pretty and beautiful and confident, you do it. Forget what anyone else tells you. I don't care if it's Bobbi Brown. I don't care if it's me. I don't care who it is. If someone tells you that's a makeup don't, but you love it, you do it. Okay, that's how I feel. Now, back to what we were talking about. So today I'm going to be sharing with you guys what I took away and just kind of tips that I thought would be valuable to teach you guys from her complexion section of the lesson. So that's foundation, concealer, bronzer, blush, and highlight. We're going to be talking about all those. If you guys like this video and you want me to produce another video on eyeshadow tips and techniques that I took away from her masterclass, let me know in the comment section below. Okay, let's get started. So I do have my notes here, and I'm going to reference them because I don't want to twist anything that I read or saw. I really want to refer to the handbook that's included in the lesson so that, you know, I really convey the lesson, right? With that being said, a lot of prep and time goes into, you know, preparing this content, and I want to be respectful of that. So I will have the information for the app in the description box if you're interested in checking it out and signing up for it. It's not an affiliate link, it's not sponsored, but I want to be respectful and share that. And, you know, I want to be respectful that it's content that you pay for, but also at the same time, I want to share it with you guys because that's what I do. Okay, so this I found interesting. So she did have a little part in the handbook about product expiration and the general rule of thumb. And I get asked this a lot too, like, how long is my foundation good for? When should I throw out my eyeshadows? And honestly, there hasn't really been, like, there's just a lot of gray areas. So according to her, foundation is good for 1 year if it's water-based, slightly longer for oil-based foundations. Sunscreen is good for 1 year, lipstick 1 to 2 years, lip gloss is 6 months to a year, mascara 3 to 6 months, and then you toss it out. Powder makeup is good for 2 years. So that's powder, that's eyeshadow, that's blush powder, basically any product that's in a powder formula. Cream liquid makeup is good for 6 months to a year. Liquid eyeliner, again, just like mascara, 3 to 6 months. And a pencil and gel eyeliner is good for 1 year generally. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about my takeaways from her foundation section of the lesson. So she comes from the thought that skin should look like skin. You know, she really starts her lesson by talking about how makeup is not made to make you look different. Makeup is made to enhance your natural features. So I really took away from the lesson that she is not one that uses makeup to transform anyone. She uses makeup to enhance, to make things look natural. And she talks about how when she started out her makeup career, you know, it was in the 80s, and she was very different than any of the other makeup artists because everything back then was neon colors, like, you know, super flat matte formulas and textures. And she was all about the natural, or the nude beauty. The nude look is what she calls it, which was very different at that time. And I think that her as an artist and as a brand has really stayed true to that concept of very natural nude makeup. So when it comes to foundation, she says that foundation should be skin-like. It should not be heavy. It should not be mask-like. It's not meant to cover your skin. It's really meant to even skin tone out. So if you have freckles or, you know, blemishes, while you can spot conceal blemishes, she says that you should let freckles shine through. You shouldn't put makeup on to try and cover and mask that. She talks about finding the perfect shade of foundation. I didn't really get a whole lot of takeaway from there. She did say that the best way to test foundation is to swipe a couple of shades on the side of your face, and whichever one completely disappears into your skin is the right shade. Kind of makes sense. I know some of us like to match our foundation to our chest here. My face is much lighter than the rest of my body, so if I did that, I would have a very light face. That's not what I do. I try and even things out so that this matches this, but her tip is that it should match your face. It shouldn't be any darker. So she does have a little section in her handbook about mature skin and ways to prep the skin for foundation for mature skin. And she says it's very important to prep the skin with a rich moisturizer or a face oil pretty immediately before applying foundation. She also says to apply foundation in little bitty layers. So start with a little bit amount and then build where you need it. I have said that in so many videos. I completely agree with that concept. It's better to start with sheer little layers and build upon than just slap a bunch of product on your face and then try and blend it out, because what will end up happening is you're going to use way more than you need. While it might look okay immediately after, as the day progresses, it is going to look like a heavy cakey mess. So little bitty layers, add more where you need it, but don't add it where you don't need it. So for mature skin, she also says to look for a hydrating, buildable foundation. She says to avoid heavier, matte, full coverage foundations. I totally agree with that. Obviously, if you have oilier skin, you're going to need to make some adjustments. She doesn't really talk about primer in the video at all, but a primer is a great way to ensure that a hydrating foundation has longer wearability on the skin and keeps it from kind of moving around and settling into lines. I think the best way to avoid your foundation moving and settling in texture in the skin, like fine lines, pores, wrinkles, is to be very careful with how much you apply. The more product you have sitting on the skin, the more opportunity you have for that product to move. Okay, so when she talks about concealer, she describes concealer, and this is so true, and it's actually a great way to think about it. It's a highly concentrated foundation formula, really. It's like foundation, but it's highly concentrated, much more coverage than foundation. She says your concealer under your eyes should be 1 shade lighter than your foundation. So you don't want it to be too light, obviously, and you don't want it to be darker. You want it to be 1 shade lighter so that it offers a little bit of brightness. She says that when you're using a concealer to spot conceal on the face, then you want to switch. You don't want to use the same concealer for under your eyes as you use on the face. You want to have a concealer for each. The one that is on your face needs to match your skin tone, so it's going to be a little darker than the one under your eye. She also references how our under eye tone is different than our skin tone, which I agree, and I've talked about before. If, under the eye, we tend to have a lot of darkness there. Either it's a purple or bluish or green undertone. So that's why you find peach color correctors or peachy concealers to really do the best at concealing and neutralizing those. One of my favorites that I've talked about is the Charlotte Tilbury color corrector. You can see this one here. It's got a light peachy tone to it. It's very hydrating. This is the shade Fair. This is one of my favorites, but she talks about, under the eye, choosing a concealer that has a bit more peach to it to help neutralize darkness if you are someone that has really dark under eye circles. Again, these are things that we've talked about before in videos. She talks about your finger being the best way to blend concealer for a very natural, even application that just melts the concealer into your skin. She says if you're looking for a little more coverage, a brush or a sponge will do. I agree with that. I personally like to use a brush or a sponge because I do like to get more coverage under the eye, but if you are going for a very natural application, your fingers are the best tool, she says. She also says, and I liked this because I'm always one that sets underneath my eyes concealer, and I know that some of us are like, oh, I can't do that because I have texture and it makes things look more dry. But she says be sure to set under your eyes, especially if you're wearing liner or mascara underneath there, to keep it from running. I get asked all the time, my mascara runs or my eyeliner smudges throughout the day, and sometimes it's simply because your concealer is heating up throughout the day with the oils from your skin, and it's an oily product, so it's breaking up any kohl pencils or mascara that you have underneath there. So sometimes just setting your concealer with powder will eliminate that. Now this was interesting, and I had never thought about it, but it actually makes total sense. She says that you can do concealer without applying foundation, but you cannot do foundation without applying concealer. And I thought, yeah, that makes sense, right? When we put concealer on, as long as we're not using something that's too heavy or too light or the wrong color, we can apply it and blend it into the skin so that things look natural. But if you put foundation on and you don't put concealer under your eyes, it just doesn't look right, right? I mean, some of us maybe that don't have darkness under the eyes, that'll work, but I know for me, if I put concealer on, if I put foundation on and I haven't put concealer on, I just doesn't work. It's not gonna work. So I liked that rule that she has. That is one rule that I was like, huh, yeah, that makes sense. Okay, this was something that I really wanted to share because I do this and I realized that, but I hadn't really, I don't know that I've ever expressed it in a video, is that texture on the skin cannot be covered. And I know a lot of times we look at foundation or concealer to cover up, you know, let's just say a pimple, for example. We have a pimple on the skin, it's really red and inflamed, there's a big bump on the skin, maybe there's some dry flakiness around it. Now, a concealer or foundation will cover the discoloration, it can even out and cover that redness, but that bump or a flaky patch of skin, concealer or foundation or makeup in general is really going to highlight that texture. You cannot cover texture, okay? You cannot cover texture with makeup. That's why when we have texture, like a lot of fine lines or wrinkles, heavier products make it look worse because it magnifies that texture. So if you are spot concealing something on the face and there's a dry patch of skin, you wanna exfoliate or remove what you can of that before you apply your concealer. She also says if you are trying to spot conceal on the face, use a highly pigmented concealer that matches your skin tone. I know we mentioned that already. She says to use a small precision brush. Do not use your finger because your finger can just kind of move it and wipe it away, where a brush is really going to allow you to pinpoint that coverage and set it. She also says to use very little layers. So start with a little layer, add a little more if you need to. Don't go in and grab a bunch of concealer and try and blend it out. And she says always set your concealer, especially when you are doing spot concealing around the face, always set it with the powder. Now she finishes the foundation and concealer lesson by saying, don't forget to always set your makeup. She says that you want to use a big fluffy brush when setting all over the face. A brush this size will do, you know, every brand has them. This is the BK Beauty 102 brush, but it's soft and fluffy and you can apply your powder and set all over the face with this. She says if you are dry and you are someone that has dry skin and you're like, I don't like to set with powder because I feel like it makes me look more dry, she still recommends setting with a powder, but she recommends being more targeted with where you set with powder. So using a brush that's a bit smaller, let's see what I have here. Do I have, yes I do. I have the BK Beauty 108 brush, something small like this that you can really just kind of target set with powder rather than all over the face. Just set in those areas that tend to get a little shiny, a little oily, or that tend to move throughout the day. But she does recommend always setting your foundation with a powder, regardless of what your skin type is. The difference really is changing that application if you have dry versus oily skin. Okay, so let's talk blush and bronzer and highlighter. So this is one area that I did learn a couple of things, and it also kind of reinforced some things that I was already doing. So bronzer, so she actually has a different approach to bronzer than I have taught here on my channel. She talks about applying bronzer actually kind of on the higher points of the cheek. I always use it here, almost where you kind of contour, and she actually is not a fan of contouring. She says you don't need to contour, you don't need to change the shape of your face. I don't know if I agree with that personally. I think I don't contour every day, but I think contouring can define our features a little bit, enhance. But she says, no, you don't need to contour. You don't need to contour your nose. Your nose is perfect. You don't need to contour your face. So she actually applies bronzer a little higher up. She says in the temples too. She says on the bridge of the nose. She also recommends applying bronzer down the neck because obviously our neck is a lot lighter because it doesn't get a lot of sun there. She talks about bronzing with a warm matte bronzer. She says if you use a shimmer bronzer, you're using it more as a highlight. And while you can still apply it in that area, you want to be careful not to apply shimmer, you know, all over the face. So she's really kind of more of an advocate of a matte warm bronzer versus a shimmery bronzer. But she says you can use shimmer. Again, you just want to be careful with placement. So when it comes to blush, I was so happy to hear this because actually someone called me out on a video recently when I was talking about where I apply and how I apply blush. Someone said, no, someone else, and they referenced another YouTuber. Basically, they said I was doing it wrong and I should watch this other YouTuber because he knows the rules. And I was just like, okay. Again, I don't take offense to that because, like I said, I don't believe there are rules in makeup ever. And I don't care if I'm watching the greatest makeup artist ever. Just because they say something is a rule doesn't mean that I'm going to adopt that. I do what I think looks good on me and what I like. And Bobbi apparently agrees, just saying. So Bobbi's approach to blush is to apply it to smile. She says to smile and apply it on the apples of the cheek. She also says to apply it on the apples of the cheek and to move upward, but brush your brush down, use downward strokes. And that's exactly how I apply my blush. And someone asked me one time why I apply it that way. And I had to kind of think of what my, you know, because I never think about it, I just do it that way. And what I just came up with is that I do it that way because I like to kind of apply it up to give a little bit of a lift, but I like to brush down so that I don't have too, you know, too high of blush lines. I want it to look very natural. Now, she talks about blush color and being really careful with the shades that you pick for your blush. She does talk about how you can match your blush with your lipstick, but she says that our blush color should be the color that our cheeks naturally turn to when we have an intense workout or we pinch them, just that natural flush to the cheeks. So she's not about bright, bold colors on the cheeks. She's, again, all about finding natural colors. Today I use this one by e.l.f. Cosmetics. It is Mellow Mauve, and I really love this blush. I think it's a great shade for lighter to medium light or light medium skin tones. It's really beautiful, just soft. It looks just like a natural flush. You don't really notice the blush, but it gives some color to the cheeks and to the skin. So, okay, and the last thing she talked about was highlighting. And she said that, you know, highlighting has really become a trend over the last few years. And she kind of alluded to the fact that, you know, she's not a big fan of like these real intense highlights on the face. And I think, you know, I personally kind of agree with that. I think it really depends on the face, the skin. You know, for me, myself personally, I'm not a big fan of highlighting, you know, real intense highlight. But she talks about how cream or liquid highlighters are best for a more natural look, and how powder highlights, not that you can't do them, but they tend to be a little bit more intense. She talks about highlighting the high planes of the face, which is, you know, basically imagining there's a light shining on your face and where those high planes would be. You know, overall, what I took away from this section of her masterclass is a lot of the things that I learned when I started at MAC. It's really kind of the basics of makeup application. It's the understanding and the theory behind using makeup to enhance your natural beauty. So those are my takeaways from the complexion section of the Bobbi Brown Masterclass. Again, you guys, I know they're pretty simple, basic takeaways, but it was nice and refreshing to see a makeup artist at her level teach makeup in a very unintimidating and very simple, straightforward approach. It really reminded me that, you know, makeup artistry can be everything from supernatural to what we are seeing here on YouTube with these more advanced techniques, a lot more dramatic makeup. And I think that, you know, you fall wherever you feel beautiful. And so if you guys liked this video, if you learned anything, I know the takeaways were simple, you guys. Again, I started watching this and I decided I was gonna do this video, and as I was hoping to find like these like tips that I've never heard before, or these really advanced techniques, and everything for the most part was pretty, it was like kind of the foundations of makeup. But I love that. I love that. So if you guys want me to do another video on the takeaways from the eye portion of her masterclass, please let me know. Leave a comment in the description box below. I'll have the information for Masterclass 2 in the description box if you are curious. But yeah, those are my takeaways, you guys. I know super simple and straightforward. I feel like YouTube has made us all advanced makeup artists, to be honest. I feel like YouTube has made us all makeup artists. You know what I mean? I think that thanks to YouTube, you know, we have the ability to learn makeup in a way that we never did before YouTube. And so, so anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Leave me your questions and comments down below in the description box, and I will see you guys in my next video. Bye guys. Oh wait, okay, hold on, sorry. I wanted to mention too, at the back of the manual, she lists her product recommendations, and I will list those in the description box. I didn't want to go through all of them here because a lot of them I don't personally own, but I thought that that might be something you'd be interested in. So I will list all the products that she recommends for each category in the description box with links so you can check those out. Okay, now we're signing off, you guys. Have a fantastic day, and I will see you all in my next video. Bye guys.